No one on? Okay. Do you have anything you'd like to? Anything for public comment? All right, monthly financials.
So, thank you. So a couple of things. I've been looking at these reports and I'm just wondering how I want to start off presenting them to you, because they're actually 3 reports at 3 different levels. So I'll just go over the top one, and then I have some things I'd like to point out when we get to the detailed report, and then obviously any questions you have, I'm here to answer. So we did a lot of work going through and making a lot of reclasses in our salaries account, like I had stated the prior month, so it looks a lot cleaner when we look at the detailed report in a few minutes. And we could see, so on our salary, the 5100 series, we're looking to come in at a 311,000 over budget right now. And again, that's, as I explained, I believe in a previous meeting, that's based on kind of like a formula, because we don't go through each individual person, but it's just a mathematical formula. So I think it's pretty accurate with what we're doing. What's bringing us down to the 311,000 is that we're under budget 157,627, which is a subsequent report for the long-term subs that we've explained is due to the change in the FMLA law. So that's bringing us under budget because family members are now included in that. Also, if we get down to the employee benefits, the reason why we're running under budget right now, again, that's our retiree insurance, where they write us the check. So in theory, we're really not under budget because we're getting the checks in monthly from our retirees. So we think that should be net neutral by the end. And again, it's reduced every month. Over budget, I'm sorry, over budget. Again, if we get down to our purchased professional services, we're running in line. If we get down to the more detailed report, you could see that if we look at the percentage, that's exactly where we should probably be at this point in the year. Moving down to the other purchase services, again, we're over budget 130,374, and that's, we've discussed in previous months, that's due to the expulsions. We've recently had one student come off of expulsion, but we've had one extended, so it did go up just a little bit. And again, we go down to the total supplies. I explained last meeting that we're for the fuel, the natural gas, and electricity, I just upped those up a little bit because of inflation on 3%, 3%, 5%. And if I may just segue into the budget process just very quickly. So as you know, our buses are propane, thankfully, and we don't use a lot of oil. The reason why I'm bringing up oil is I'm going to point out a $40,000 number in our detail report, and that's just because, as we explained before, we pay for e-school, and then that they reimburse us. So we have the charge, we paid the $40,000, we just didn't get reimbursed yet. So it looks like we're over budget by $40,000, but I'll point that out in a moment. But so our contract with Eastlake ran out in August for oil, which we were locked in, and I had actually called up after speaking with John, who used the oil. I talked to Ed Advance, and they said, don't lock in, just let it go, which is turning out to be a good decision now. And again, I'm not worried about our budget as far as oil goes, because I think we use between 10 and 15,000 gallons, and that's really, this building is really the only building that uses oil, other than John. In the winter, when it gets to a certain temperature, we pay our natural gas, and John, correct me if I'm misspeaking here, we pay our natural gas based on the lowest temperature. I guess that's when they figure out our expense on that. So what John does and his team does, they fire up the boilers to kind of offset that, so we don't have the coolest days on the natural gas. So that's kind of how we kind of offset a little bit. And again, we didn't lock in with the oil, and I'm glad we didn't, because the oil has come down substantially there. And then also on the electricity front, I did, everybody's have inflationary pressures with electricity, especially because I think the first of the year went up from 12 cents to 24 cents, I believe. But speaking to Mr. Aram, he said we're actually locked in for another year, so we're not going to have those inflationary pressures to the degree that other districts are, that we might have had to put into the budget. So sorry for getting a little off topic there, but I just wanted to bring that up when we went through the line items. Again, our total equipment line, we're fine. So all in all, we're kind of running to where I would expect us to run. We're a lot cleaner, and we're almost in the same position as we were last year. So we could either go to the next level down or go right down to the detailed sheet. Whatever you'd like to do.
Anybody have any questions on anything so far? Okay, keep on going.
Gonna go to the next sheet? Okay, perfect. So if there's no specific correction, no specific questions here, I'll just go down again. If we go to page 2, and if you look at account 5123, that's our long-term subs, and that's the amount that I pointed out before that we're over budget. Our retiree insurance, again, I just highlighted it to show where it is in a detailed report. And again, that keeps getting reduced every month as our retirees pay. Again, the clothing we spoke to in prior meetings. We just had to buy more clothes because we had more janitors, and we'll budget accordingly this month. On page 3 of 6, I really have nothing to point out here specifically, unless somebody has a specific question.
The snow plowing contracted service, that's for the increase at the high school, right?
Yes.
Okay.
If we turn to page 4 of 6, again, the tuition at the VOAG sped. I just looked into, I'm just looking at my notes, so just bear with me 1 second.
If I may.
Sure.
The BOAG sped for all of the speech, the OT, PT, paras has gone up. We did not know that until October. And so it's very hard to budget for something that you don't know. And so they also got a new director. And so prices seem to be significantly higher, unfortunately. So,
Is that Region 6?
yes.
Okay, so thank you. So Region 6 raised their prices, didn't tell us after we did our budget, so.
Right, until afterward.
After we
And
did our budget.
yeah,
So,
unfortunately,
and
that's
again,
when we get the numbers.
we have the numbers, so we'll be a little bit more accurate this year with that.
And we hope they will stabilize.
They don't have a deadline for setting it's tuition for, that tuition for the students to go there per student.
Correct. The tuition they do, but for their services, they don't.
So that's for the services, okay.
Correct.
This happened a couple of years ago with the magnets. They did the same thing.
Yeah.
Right. Makes it
And
very
they set their own
difficult.
prices.
Right.
We can't.
Yep.
We don't have any say in it.
Right.
And then again, a little bit farther down on the 5564, the tuition line, that's the expulsions, which we talked about earlier. And then on the next sheet, page 5 of 6, it's actually the account 5624, that's the oil. So it looks like we're actually over budget $40,000, but we're not. I haven't done it yet, but I have it on my desk to write the letter to Rich and Ed Advance to get payment in that. So we'll see. Hopefully on next month, that'll be zeroed out again. And I'd be happy to answer any questions anybody might have. But we haven't had any surprises yet. John and I are in constant communication, so we'll all knock on wood. Everything seems good. We're having, and again, I don't want to jinx it, but we're having a relatively above average temperature, winter, so.
Yeah, really.
So,
Yeah.
Something's happening.
Sorry to you skiers, but I'm very happy.
Yeah.
It's just a snow environment.
Sorry about that. Go north.
Can't even go there.
Our plowing contract, that was a fixed contract, so we're not gonna pick up that plowing, right?
right, that's why I didn't mention it, Gary, but.
No, I thought so.
And fuel oil, we haven't expelled, other than this building here, which is 100% fuel and no gas, we haven't expelled any fuel oil out in any of our sites. So just a brief, quick explanation. What I do is you get charged a demand factor. And the demand is the highest usage at any one given day. And so when I see days where we go into single digit temperatures, there are 3 buildings that I can transfer over to oil. And that's what we do. We run on oil those days to keep the demand factor on our gas as low as possible, because that demand factor, they charge you for 12 months. So it would make our numbers go up if we didn't do that. So, but we haven't started the boilers at all yet, so.
Which buildings are those, John?
It's Torrington High School, Torringford, and Forbes. No, that was taken out.
Oh, during the last renovation.
Yeah.
I have a couple of questions. The OT for the custodians, we spent over 18,000 and
What's the number, Fiona, in the page?
51, 30, 80.
206.
I'm sorry, page
Yes.
2 of 6.
So John and I just talked about that today, matter of fact. So I guess whenever there's a function, there's the custodians need to be present there. And that's coming up with a good portion of their overtime there. And we're hoping in the springtime that we have enough to cover the events that they're going to be. So they're not, John, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, it's not overtime where they're working, fixing something.
But are these
For their
all
overtime.
school events, or
Excuse me?
are they school events?
Yes.
Or outside organization events, or?
It's a combination, right? So by contract, the custodians have to be paid overtime for any of the events that get scheduled through, whether it be in school or out of school events.
Right, but usually the groups would pay, like
Out of-
when I
out of
was on the
school-
PTO, we
Out
paid
of
for our
school, right,
custodians.
out of school events reimburse us for custodial expenses. How that reimbursement goes back into that number, I do not know.
Yeah, I'll check into that.
Yeah, just
further
for
to see
next
if there were
month.
any events that we didn't get reimbursed, and if there were,
Yeah,
I'll make sure that we get
And where they
reimbursed.
get reimbursed? I mean, do they get reimbursed in this line item or somewhere else?
It would definitely go into this line, or I would put them in this line. I don't know 100%
Yeah.
because
Let's check.
but
Yeah,
I will
for next
definitely
month.
check on
Yeah,
that. And
yeah.
but yeah, if I had my druthers, that's exactly where they would go.
And I think that's
I
where
would
it
say
has, but
probably, I would say probably 80%, 80% of the events that happen in our buildings are they're non-reimbursed events. They're
school related.
Right,
school-related
right,
events,
yeah.
right?
But
and
let's-
there's some outside.
Yeah, so
And
we'll
at
get
holiday
some
time, you know, at
specifics.
Christmas,
Yep.
Yeah.
there,
It's
you know,
not
there
difficult
was,
at
but
all. We'll get the
isn't
detail.
one of them have a church or whatever, but we don't have to have a custodian there at that point, or do we?
Middle school used to have a
The middle
church
school.
come in.
And
But
so
if
did,
there's setup or
the east,
food
but
or
they
things
didn't.
like that, then you have to have custodian. You have to have a custodian if it's like a Sunday, and but then there's a fee.
right,
So
We
yeah.
also have an outside group right now that's absorbing quite a bit of time at Vogel Wetmore School. And I think they get invoiced monthly. The first invoice to them just went out. So I know we haven't seen that number yet. They're doing Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday for a indoor soccer league, I believe it is. Yeah, it's indoor soccer, right, Chris?
I mean, they're
Yeah.
paying for it. The issue I
Right,
have
this
is
is
we have
different.
6 months left, and we have enough to cover what we paid in December, so I think we just need to get a handle on that and make sure that we're getting money for organizations that are using it, because we can't be eating all of that cost.
Thank you.
And there's probably no cost for East School anymore either, right? Didn't they have a church or something?
There was no
Those people should
custodial.
be paying though. That should not be on the Board of
Yeah.
Ed.
Yeah,
All
there
those,
was never
Okay.
any overtime at East School.
Okay,
period.
Yeah, so Scott, or if we do lease it out to somebody and we have to charge for it, wouldn't you want that show as a revenue so you can,
we can't have any
Okay.
revenue.
well, as a revenue item, or you're just gonna show it?
Say that
as a-
again.
If we're collecting money.
Yes.
For,
Right, if they have to pay a facilities use fee.
yeah, so
Yep.
you're gonna offset it with a negative off this expense, because that's an expense category, or
Right, it would go into that line item.
might be hard to follow from our standpoint, but.
I think it's not too bad in terms of what we're looking for.
Yeah. And then the long-term subs, it just looked like we really budgeted that wrong, because the previous year we had
I was gonna ask that
368,000.
question, yeah, I saw that.
So I don't know why we had 100,000 for that line item. So when we're doing next year's budget, probably gotta look at that a little better
No,
of
thank you, I'll definitely,
why we were, and maybe we knew a bunch of people that were going off or something, but I didn't notice that, but it looks bad now. So it may not be that we're
Yeah.
over, it may be that we budgeted that number inappropriately.
And I just think there
Or-
are a number of complications, right?
Or that it
with
was
the-
transfers or whatever. that
Right,
needed.
FMLA, and then Kelly Services isn't picking up a lot, and so then
Right.
you have all of this going on, so maternities and other things that people didn't know that occur during the year, so a combination, yes, so we'll look at it and pull apart the detail before we make a plan for next year.
Any other questions on specifics on
It
this?
could be the long-term subs have a longer term than in the past, they had a shorter long-term sub. Do you know what I mean? It was like
Right,
3
it was
months,
less
but now
than
it's a
the
year.
40 days, right?
Right, yeah, you know?
so thank you, I'll definitely follow up with those great questions.
Jason, did you have any questions?
I'm good. Thank you.
Everybody else, Ed, you all set? Student activities.
Yes, so the student activities, so Southwest Music, we wanted to get the detail, which I did, they were great. So we had a balance in there about $15,000, which we're a little concerned with. So they just, in fact, this week, they have a bunch of boxes from George's and others from a PO they placed. So they actually spent $6,500, so that's what they spent. And they have another couple $1,000s in POs that they're gonna place and should be getting getting those supplies in. So with George's, it was mostly on repairs and music sheets, the mouthpieces, I don't know the exact term. So they'll be spending, they said and again, when I looked at the actual activity, they were right. So one of the reasons why it spiked to 15,000 is they had just received in their monies from the rentals that they charged the kids. So it did kind of go up and spike up to the 15. But no, they're well aware that we're watching and the board is watching and that we want that spent down in the upcoming months, which it will be.
Any questions?
So it has,
on
the
that?
balance has gone down significantly since we told them to start spending the money.
Right.
Good
Which they probably
reminder.
already had planned, but
Yes.
Right.
just didn't get there yet.
Any questions on student activities?
There's nothing else that's
No, that was the only
glaring, okay.
question I had to answer, but if you know, I'll report on them from time to time whenever the board wants me to report on the student activities, I'd be happy to. Just give me a little notice and I'll have them ready for
I think
any
we should
subsequent meetings.
look at them in March because they have that where they have to notify the board of carryovers by May. So it'd probably be better to get any questions in March
I think
so
that's
that it
great.
can be
So we
cleaned
can
up
look
by
at 'em
April
all,
before
yeah.
the May 1st deadline. And then so we saw the schools, but we didn't see the other student activities accounts yet, the
What else you-
PTOs and
That would-
the high school groups. So for next
We
month,
can,
maybe.
yeah.
Yeah,
And that
I
way
don't know if it
then,
was included. I'll have to look again, because I
I
don't
don't
remember.
recall seeing it either, but
you know,
I think the high schools was there, but I don't know if the PTOs was there. Or you're talking about the outside high school groups.
all the outside groups
Yeah.
that are under
Alumni
our
ones and
EIN
whatever.
number.
right,
Okay.
right.
Yeah, those I don't think were there.
Torrington Athletic Club
Yeah.
or something like
Yeah.
that, that use our ID number.
I'll have to look.
Yeah, so
Unless
if we
they
can
got
get
their
those
own, you
next
know,
month or
yeah.
the following month, just so that we get a better picture before we go into that May 1st date.
For March would be good, I think.
Yeah. I do want to commend Scott. He has learned New World. He's been entering in New World. We are getting ready for the next budget. I think you'll like the format. I think it will be easier. You'll actually see some positions within the budget. So maybe not looking at 10 different documents. That's what we're aiming for. So took a
Actually
lot
put
of
it in
work.
wrong, but I put it in
Well, you'll be
wrong
happy.
correctly,
It
so-
actually will work out.
more
So you're-
detail than I
yes.
guess we were.
So you'll be very happy. So it'll be a little more to take out, but that's okay. We'll work around it. But really, New World is very, very difficult system. And for him to have mastered it in this amount of time, kudos to him. And we lost our accountant, got a temp, and we think he's a very good candidate and shows good potential. So we're hoping to have somebody stay and move on, and that's good. They seem to be a good team. So, yeah, we're rocking and rolling in the business office.
There you go. All right, any questions on student activities before we move on? All right, substitute services review.
That's all Kim.
That's all me. So here, you can take some your way and your way.
Can you send that to Marissa so she can?
I did already, and I sent it to Josh, and so I sent it to everybody. I apologize
Perfect.
that it's kind of angled in the scan. What I've given you as a handout, let me start at the beginning. Last month, I had mentioned at the full board meeting that I have been exploring some other vendors to look at for substitute services because of the low fill rates that we've been having with our current vendor. I have, contacted some of my colleagues, other HR directors to see what other districts are doing. This organization that I'm sharing with you right now, which is Educational Staffing Solutions, they seem to have been gaining presence in Connecticut. So in the document that I just shared with you, on the first page, you can see the national snapshot, which just kind of talks about where they are in the country. On the second page, though, you can see the districts that they're doing in Connecticut. And in particular, they mentioned the fact that this presentation was done specifically for me, just so you know. That's why it says 9 partnership districts, 2 of which are within 20 miles of your district. They're talking about Torrington. So Waterbury and Bristol, and I believe they're going to be finalizing a contract with Danbury right now as well. So I think several districts in Connecticut are moving from the current vendor to this vendor. Recruiting and retention, they do the centralized recruiting. They have updates, performance management, engagement, that's pretty standard. The local outreach, they're very good about that. The one thing that I will just say about this vendor is we get a dedicated person. And that's what's nice about this vendor, is that they provide us with a dedicated person that actually works on site with us. Depending on the size of our district and how many they have, it might be 2 days a week, 3 days a week. So for example, one of their dedicated representatives that they have currently spends 4 days a week in Manchester and then spends 2 days a week, 1 day 1 week and 1 day the next week in some of the smaller surrounding districts that are like 1 school or 2 school districts. So because of the size of Manchester. So with our size, maybe we'd get 2 days a week, 3 days a week, but I think we would get some dedicated support.
And what is it that they would be, what's the support look like?
They are calling, they're recruiting, they're helping with the onboarding. And then if you get to the next page, so the one that's marked page 14, they offer benefits to all of their employees. And I know that was something we talked about at last month's meeting, was that's one of the difficulties with hiring substitutes, is that they don't get benefits. This company provides benefits to all of their employees. They have a Kickstart incentive towards credentialing, so they help them if they want to further a career in actually becoming a teacher, or if they want to take the parapro or any of those things. The other piece is the training. They do all of this very intensive training before they get on the job, which is something that is not happening now. So I think that, and that's what I have as samples here. If you want to see some of the guidebooks, if you want to pass some down, and here, actually, give me one of those. These two are the same. So, yeah.
Kim, what is their fill rate?
So their bill rate is
Fill rate.
actually.
Fill.
Oh,
Fill.
fill rate? So I think, I thought one of the pages that you had here had that.
And going to,
Increased fill rate,
Maybe we
page
can-
16.
Yeah, so they're, right now in the market that we're in, they're in like the 70s and the 80s right now because it is a tough market, but that's double what we have right now. So,
Just because some of the districts they have here, the board chairs have been complaining about not being able to get subs, so I'd be curious.
right, and I think
Are
everybody.
they at 40%, 50%, for districts like
Sure.
ours? Because I think it's easier to get subs in some of these other districts.
Correct, yes.
No, I think insurance is, like my son just, on Region 1 now, he just started it.
Yeah.
It's all about insurance.
Yeah.
Which I don't think you can get up there, I told him from here, but.
No, and I, like I said, I think there is a national issue with getting substitutes, no matter how much you're paying or where you are. So I think that that's just a reality.
So
But I
then
think-
what would our fee be in comparison to what we're
Right,
paying
so
now?
their bill rate is actually, so our bill rate for Kelly Services is a 38% markup from whatever we pay, is what, and that covers all of our fees. They've actually given us a quote of 35%.
What would that equate to dollar-wise? Just because would this have to go out to bid?
Yep, so for our daily subs, which our current rate of pay that the board voted on was 115, their bill rate would be 155.25.
Can we like estimate what our annual, like what a one-year contract would be for cost?
So it all depends on how many jobs they get, so like,
Right.
so.
No, but just, looking at what Kelly, to
Right.
see if this would have to go out. I think it has to go out to bid.
Oh, it
Well-
has to go.
So I'm glad you mentioned that, because I talked to them about that and said, it's possible we would have to go out to bid. And so this is something that the board could look at or consider. They are part of a consortium called Equalis. And because of being part of the consortium, Region 10 has already done the bid. And there's no fee to be a part of this Equalis consortium because it's the vendors that pay it, and it's approved by the state of Connecticut. So I'm not familiar with it, but I told them I would present the option.
So it's almost like being on the bid list for
Correct.
other vendors
Exactly,
from the state.
yes.
I mean, it makes sense that somebody finally specializes in this industry. I don't know if anybody else does it, but
Sure.
I mean, Kelly does everything. I never quite understood how Kelly could make their money when they.
so they're just substitute teaching,
And Paris, yes.
substitute teaching in Paris.
And they actually have clerical for schools.
Okay,
Yes.
but it's mainly
It's
schools.
all
whereas-
education.
Whereas Kelly is,
It's all K-12 education, yeah. And the representative from ESS, and if you're interested from Equalis, would be happy to come to next month's meeting to answer any of your questions if you'd like. They would welcome the opportunity to speak with you and present their docket.
Would this replace Delta T also, or just Kelly Services?
Yeah, I mean, my intention would be that it would replace Delta
Yeah.
T, but I think Delta T has not been able to provide us much in the last 2 years.
Okay.
So I think, I think we would still keep Delta T, like in student services, where they have if we have a specific need for a speech pathologist or something like that, they would still be on the list of vendors that
Okay.
we could always outreach to if we had something specific,
Okay.
but it wouldn't be for daily needs on a regular basis.
Okay.
Does this agency have those type of services, speech and that?
No.
kind of- No.
They just do substitute staff.
do we have contract with Kelly that's coming up, or?
We renew it every year.
So it's a yearly renewal, and Delta T as well, or is that?
Yes,
Because I'm just, this Equalis, this contract, and I'm assuming that's for this consortium, technically ends in October of this year. I mean, it does extend out to 2027, but who determines if it extends out or not? The renewable through? Is that the state determining if it renews out?
yeah, that part I don't know, because like I said, I'm not as familiar with the Equalis.
Okay.
But that's what usually happens with the other vendors in terms of what the state approval is.
And Kim, when you talked about their fill rate, was that just teachers or is that para, does that
Their fill rate
encompass?
for teachers is higher,
Okay,
so, but I think that was an overall.
okay, so you said 75,
I think,
80%?
yeah, I think they're in the
Okay.
75 range as an average right now in Connecticut.
But I think the big draw is because they offer the benefits. I'm sure that.
They
they
offer the
have more
benefits
people.
and the training I thought was really nice. I
Okay.
don't know who
Training's
has
good.
the documents that I just shared, but you know, they have a handbook for paras, they have a handbook for teachers. I mean, it's really,
So who, if somebody's gonna be joining, my son, I'll use my son first. He won't be, but,
Gary's pushing.
no, he won't be Torrington. He won't spend $5 on gas. But they get paid for training or no? How does that work?
they would get paid by ESS,
By-
yeah.
In all of our current Kelly service substitutes would then have to apply to this organization. So we would be starting,
I don't wanna say it.
well, no, because they probably have substitutes in the area. So we wouldn't be starting at zero. We would
Right,
be pulling from the pool that they have.
correct.
And hopefully bringing more people to them because we're no longer using Kelly.
Correct.
And they don't have to pay a fee to belong to.
The employee, no.
Do they have like poaching language of,
Like conflict of interest or something like that? I don't-
no, meaning that if someone subs for us and we wanted to hire
Oh.
them as a permanent person?
Yeah, I
is
mean,
there a
I
period
haven't
of
seen that
time?
part of the contract, but I'm assuming there is a conversion fee. That's, yes, I would assume that if somebody was working for them, but that is certainly something that the board could negotiate with them. Because that's always negotiable on what that looks like, so. But, you know, our current conversion fee negotiation with Kelly Services is like, the first 5 people are free.
Yeah.
And then it's like $250 for 5 to, 6 to 10. So.
The referral program, I'm assuming that's for staff that refer people to, so I have my regular sub that comes into the building, I tell them we're switching over. I mean, ultimately, staff can be getting $100 for each of these Kelly people that they tell to go over to this new.
I'm not, I don't know, because I haven't been through the formal transition, but that sounds,
It might be just for their staff, we'd have to ask. them.
Right,
Yeah,
might not be for teachers, it might be for, like, your building sub would then.
no, I mean, I do think the
recommend a
referral
different
program is for
sub.
our employees.
Oh,
I do think that's the
Any
case, because that's what we
employee.
currently even have with Kelly Services,
Mhm.
that our
Okay.
employees get a bonus for referring people.
Any
that's
employee,
it.
Yes.
okay.
so is the board interested in having them come to our budget meeting next month with questions? Or is the board not have any questions or,
As a teacher, something needs to be done.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
how I feel.
I would like to speak with them, certainly. And we
So
could get
please
some-
do something.
Yeah, we get some answers about their fill rates and stuff. I think it'd be good if they could.
So if anyone has questions that they know of, if you can send them, and then I'll forward them on to Sue, and send it to Kim, and
Great.
that way they'll have an idea of what we're looking for. And then when is the earliest we can get out of our Kelly? Is it the end of the school year, or?
Yeah, I mean, we would probably have to finish out the year
Yeah.
anyway, because they couldn't get up and running that quickly, because there would, the other component of this is that our absence management system is currently a Kelly Services system. So there would have to be some transition, but they've had experience doing that in several districts, and they actually have a dedicated person that is gonna do it for us, is what they've told me, so, so the board could then make a decision as to whether or not we could choose to pick it up ourselves, which would then reduce our bill rate. So our bill rate wouldn't be what I just quoted you, it would be less. We could own Frontline ourselves so that we don't have to worry about it being theirs anymore. Or they could it could be theirs still, and we would just have the access like we do now with Kelly. So
So-
that would be a board decision.
So we could have the cost of each.
Right.
We could have the cost of each to
Yeah.
know.
So Frontline is a contracted service that Kelly right now is using, is that what you're saying?
Frontline absence management, the
Is-
component that we have is owned by Kelly Services.
Okay.
So that's why, like, when you have the double,
Yes.
you have the single sign-on and you have to toggle.
Yeah.
It's because it's the Kelly Services organization versus the Torrington organization.
Okay.
So,
Okay, got it.
So that's the reason why. So if we owned the Frontline component versus ESS owning the Frontline component, there would be no more toggling between organizations. It would all be listed under the Torrington Public Schools organization.
That makes sense.
So what is the cost of the Frontline? Can we get that too
Yep,
for
I
next
can bring
month?
that
Yeah.
for next month. Yes.
And then what the savings would be to ESS if we had.
That would bring the 35% down, you're saying?
Yeah, so she didn't give me a quote for the bill rate if we absorbed it, but she did say that she would reduce it by whatever the cost to absorb that is. But we started with what she would give me as an initial quote, apples for apples.
So 115 is 155.25. Certified teachers get 125, don't they?
Yeah, so that
So that
would,
would go up.
so that would be, yeah.
I got it.
10.35, yeah.
Are we still competitive? I mean, I know it's only been a year, but have other schools been raising their?
Other schools have been raising their sub rates, so that's certainly during the budget season, something the board can talk about. I mean, we are competitive, but other districts are starting to now have those conversations to the point where by September, we might not be. Because I've seen one or two districts that just recently actually went up to 150 a day. So,
Still higher than private schools.
no, I know. And there's other districts that are still at 98 a day. So I think it's all over the board.
Yeah.
So,
Not as high as the
I
state,
think,
though.
We need breathing bodies.
right, exactly.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying.
Right,
So,
right. What's the state?
That's crazy.
Isn't Oliver
Para
Wolcott?
situation is
That's
extremely.
Yeah.
Oliver Wolcott.
I don't know what
I
they
think
They're like 170.
they pay more. They're probably about the 150 mark.
I would think so.
If
They're
not-
at least that, yeah.
Yeah.
Bob Milano, I think it was doing it last year. But
Crazy.
No, I've seen just recently, two boards of education that I believe just recently increased their rates, like within the last month. So I think we, when I looked at it in October, we were still competitive
Yeah.
in the area.
To get
But
more.
I do think that it's starting to change, because I think everybody's in the same boat right now.
Right.
And we talked about.
Okay, so the plan is that we'll have them come back next month
Yep.
and then we'll,
They are already holding the date.
good.
I got a money saving idea. We could just buy Gary's son a tank of gas and he can come out and teach, right? That'd be cheaper.
Give us another shot.
Oh, we
Good.
need the book back.
All right, retirement incentive. Retirement
Your
incentive.
copy is fine, the packet is fine, but those are the only copies I have.
These you
yes.
need.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not
Okay.
You guys can-
Retirement incentive?
Yeah.
Well, they can bring them
Retirement
Yep, I have
for
it.
next month. They can bring them to the next meeting, right? Pam? They can bring these to the next.
Yeah, I'll have it bring enough for everybody.
Okay, keep asking your questions. So she
That's
doesn't
fine.
get pressed.
Should I give just these to the board members for this, or this is the MOUs,
Gary's
right?
trying to hide it.
Yeah.
I think it's a great program.
Are we on to the
So
next item?
Do we need to go into
Mine not
executive
taking
session?
I can take one,
Really,
it's fine.
it's just, it's the terms of what we've done
I know what I'm
previously.
looking at, but- oh,
So,
Oh,
which
the
probably.
The
The retirement
being a
incentive.
part
Okay.
of- She's just gonna speak to it. People,
Okay.
board members can look at it as a reference.
You're not a board member?
So really, all we're-
Do not?
you can't, because that was discussed in executive session.
Sorry.
Okay.
Just so that the board can see, but it's the
That's
same
fine.
terms and as a.
That's fine.
It's the terms I email
Yes,
to everybody, so
exactly.
I think.
So you get to see it.
Yes,
There's no surprises.
I
But-
got it.
Go ahead.
Just
That's
please
why we
keep
don't need to
doing
go
it,
into.
because
I know.
I
Right,
see.
and
That's the reason why I brought it to Sue, because I know now is the time we want to be getting this out to
Right, and it
everybody.
fits very well under the whole substitute teaching, because I think it works, so you wanna.
And I
just
have
talk about the
confirmed with
terms.
all three
Do we want,
unions.
it's on the
If they
screen.
don't want it to be available,
that
Yeah,
should be on
don't,
the
you know,
screen.
don't put it on the screen.
if we don't want this to be available, then we need to be in executive session.
That's what I think too, yeah.
All right, do you wanna go ahead?
Yeah,
then?
let's go in executive session, because nobody can really ask the question.
Yeah, it's a public meeting, I mean, I could give it to anybody in the hallway, they have any right to see it,
Kick me out.
unless we're in executive session.
Kicking you out.
So we'll enter a motion to go into executive session to discuss the early retirement.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oh, I'm sorry.
7:40,
Will you
inviting
amend your
in.
motion, inviting in Ms. Schulte and Ms. Solanski?
I'll amend.
Second, your amendment.
Who's second? You, Ed?
Gary.
You did, Gary?
Gary.
All those in favor?
Close the door, Tristan.
Can you just get us off the,
Yeah.
40 something?
he's not ready yet.
I know.
They put me on like-
What time did we go? What time did we?
7:40.
Okay. That was quick.
Yep. It was me and Gary inviting you to.
Thank you. Okay, declare that the
7:45.
board is in open session at 7:45 PM. Topics for future meetings.
Aren't you gonna send this to the board?
We're moving it to the board.
Don't you have to state that in an open session? or no?
Yeah, so
Okay.
budget, we'll move it to the full board. We don't vote in the subcommittee, so
I
it's.
know, but
Okay.
I make sure we on the record that it's going.
In the full board. Okay.
All right, topics for future meetings, budget. Overtime,
Yep.
this agency for the subs. Anything else anybody would like to have?
Student activities, but not
Student
necessarily next month.
activities,
the
yeah,
following.
for the,
Yep. And PTO.
The ones we
I'm gonna
haven't
just
covered
put
yet.
PTO, because I
Yeah.
think that's.
anything else? That's a lot.
Mhm.
Comments for the good of the order, Jason?
All set?
All set?
John?
I would suggest the CABE booklet that we got in the mail last week is reading as we go into budget season. We'll make the decision as to whether we continue with CABE or not. Useful information here to inform that decision.
Sandy?
I'm good.
Good meeting. Jason, I was a little worried you didn't say much tonight, so hopefully,
Okay.
hopefully
He's saving
you
it.
just relax.
He spoke in the last meeting, and it wasn't even his meeting.
I have comments for the general board meeting.
Okay.
And comments based on a previous meeting.
Ed?
Nothing.
Marissa? Sue?
It's like dueling meetings from each
Yeah,
other,
I think
you know,
I-
who
I
got
think I
the
want
better
one.
time and.
We
I
covered
think
more.
we did.
Oh, very good.
Facilities, we got the better.
You talked about the other one.
John, I didn't receive that, but if you could tell me where I could get it.
No, I have one.
Okay,
I do.
nothing on that.
Kim?
I'm all set, thank you.
Do you have anything? Also, thank you. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
7:48.
I didn't get that either.
I didn't either.
No,
I didn't either.
I got something from Ed Advance.